What about the possible Blackwell delays and getting more clarity on exactly what that is? Because when you say, well, you'll hear from him on demand, we already know demand's great, right? We already know that. We heard from the hyperscalers. We know that revenues on CapEx are up 40, 50 times, 50%, I mean, over the period of a year. What about Blackwell?
Well, I mean, I don't view that, even if we're talking about 2-3 months, anything that moves out of the actual October quarter. When we look at from a CapEx perspective, when you look at Blackwell, if you could guide up, call it $1 to $2 billion with a delay, in terms of where the trajectory here, I mean, you're going to start looking at what ultimately would be $5-6 earnings power for Nvidia when you look out here. And I think the most important thing is here, you have the pieces of the puzzle, this Rubik's Cube. You have the CapEx players that we've seen from big tech. You have names like Palantir, ServiceNow, and others. But as the godfather of AI speaks tonight, this is the final piece that shows that this AI party we've talked about, it's 9 p.m. and it goes to 4 a.m.
Okay, speaking of, hang on just a second. Speaking of AI, Kate Rooney has some news for us regarding OpenAI. Kate?
Dan Ives of Wedbush is emphasizing that Nvidia's upcoming earnings report is one of the most critical for the stock market this year. He highlights that the demand for AI chips, which Nvidia dominates, will be a key focus, especially as Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang, shares insights into future growth. Ives believes that Nvidia's outlook over the next 6 months will shape the market's perception, particularly as the company navigates supply chain issues in Asia. He sees Nvidia's performance as pivotal, with its AI leadership making it the most important player in this space. Ives addresses concerns about potential delays in Nvidia's Blackwell chips, though he downplays their impact on the company's long-term trajectory. He predicts that even with some short-term setbacks, Nvidia's earnings potential could rise significantly, citing possible earnings growth of $5 to $6 per share. He believes that Nvidia is set to capitalize on the broader AI revolution, with major tech players relying on its innovations, solidifying its position as the godfather of AI. Beyond Nvidia, Ives touches on the broader AI landscape, including developments from OpenAI and Salesforce. He is bullish on Salesforce's potential to benefit from the AI wave, despite its recent underperformance. He views Nvidia and other tech giants as leading the next phase of a tech-driven bull market, particularly as AI spending accelerates across industries like healthcare, finance, and consumer sectors.
Shares of Nvidia dipping ahead of the company's Q2 earnings report just after the bell. My next guest calling it the most important earnings report for the stock market this year. He's Dan Ives of Wedbush, joining us here at Post 9. I don't think many would agree. I mean, it's obviously important. The most important thing you're watching for is what?
It's really about what Jensen, godfather of AI, talks about in terms of demand, because there's no better perch in terms of from an AI chip perspective than from what Nvidia sees. So I think it's not just about October quarter, it's really going into the next, call it 6 months. But I mean, we've talked about everything we're seeing from an Asia supply chain perspective. I think it's a drop the mic performance tonight.
I got another analyst I'm looking at right now at Oppenheimer who says of his own field checks, they weighed slightly negative for Salesforce's business activity and operating environment. Quote, we don't anticipate estimates to change material after the earnings update. Just fundamentally disagree with one view versus yours?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's been a lot of skepticism on Salesforce, even going back to the Elliott activism, right? Many thought stock would be so much lower than it is today. I think this is a quarter, not expecting any major fireworks, but I think the story in Salesforce, it's not about this quarter. It's about where this is going the next 6-9 months, and I believe there's a stock that could be up 30-40%.
I know, but why isn't it getting any credit as the market looks ahead 6-9 months traditionally? And all these other companies are getting credit for the AI deliverables that we assume are going to take place. Why isn't this one?
It's a great, just like the street missed Palantir. I think Manny missed Oracle. I think they'll miss sales.
John, second quarter earnings are in for Nvidia, 68 cents adjusted versus the estimate of 64 cents, so a beat on its bottom line. Revenue at $30.04 billion, also higher than Wall Street consensus, up $28.7 billion. We have comments here from CEO Jensen Huang in the press release. Hopper demand remains strong, and the anticipation for Blackwell is incredible. He says Nvidia achieved record revenues as global data centers are in full throttle to modernize the entire computing stack. And he goes on to say that Blackwell samples are shipping to our partners and customers. Spectrum X Ethernet for AI and Nvidia AI enterprise software are two new product categories achieving significant scale. Another data point here, Nvidia announcing a $50 billion repurchase of shares. We are watching the stock here move fractionally higher in overtime. John, we'll get you the guidance in just a second.
All right, we'll await that guide. Looks like it's a little bit above expectations. Nicole, what do you do with it here if you feel like you missed the big move?
The earnings beats are narrowing. I think that's exactly what I was watching over your shoulder as the market was trying to digest in the moment. When the earnings beats are narrowing, the street is less impressed on where we're headed next. And so I think until there's more clarity around movement outside of the hyperscalers, obviously adoption from finance, from healthcare, from the consumers, like we started to hear from Walmart. That's the next leg. And so I think the more we learn about Blackwell, what the stack's going to do, the demand for the stack, and these higher, even higher margin products, right? This next gen, next wave, that's what moves us higher. And so I wouldn't say this isn't an entry point because we believe that we are long Nvidia for 18 plus months here.
Along those lines, Paul, the fact that you had revenue up 152% year over year, but perhaps more significantly, revenue up 122% year over year, which represents another quarter of more than doubling. I mean, it tripled in the last quarter. So it does represent a deceleration in that rate of growth. And I wonder how much that is factoring into the stock as you see these rapid moves on your screen right now, but we're currently down 4%.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, we talked about, earlier before it released, they were going to have to exceed 30 billion just to, keep the market somewhat level here. But to your point, they've been increasing revenues so high. Revenues have more than quadrupled over the last 3 years. That's not going to happen again over the next 3 years. You'd have to have revenues of over 500 billion a year in order to keep that pace going. So the pace is going to slow. And so we always hear about, it's trading at a cheaper valuation now than it was a year ago, but the growth was so much stronger over the last year. That pace of growth is going to slow. I'm not saying that Nvidia is a stock that you don't want to own, but you have to reset your expectations here. What we've seen in the growth is going to slow down going forward.
Hey, Scott, so a source telling me that OpenAI is raising another round of funding. This is going to be led by Thrive Capital. It puts the AI startup's valuation at roughly $100 billion. According to this source, OpenAI and Thrive did decline to comment, but a source close to the matter telling me that Thrive is going to be putting in $1 billion. The Wall Street Journal first reporting this and also has some other details here saying that Microsoft is also expected to put in some additional funding. And this would be the biggest round, Scott, since OpenAI and Microsoft and that deal back in January 2023. Microsoft invested around $10 billion. Of course, there's been this arms race in Silicon Valley in terms of spending. This is expensive to run one of these large language models. They really are building a war chest here. So $100 billion is just a massive number, puts it near the likes of Stripe, SpaceX, some of the most highly valued Silicon Valley companies out there, Scott. But the latest in the AI arms race. Back over to you.
Yeah, Kate Rooney, appreciate that. Have a timely report, obviously, having Dan Ives sitting next to me. You want to comment on this?
I mean, we have $1 trillion of CapEx, of AI that's coming, down the road. You look how OpenAI's position, that's the golden child in terms of where I view AI. And I think this is just the start. We talk about valuations that continue to increase. It's a scarcity value, no different than Nvidia. What you see on the private side, when it comes to OpenAI, Nadella and Redmond continue to sort of win that race.
So greater picture for mega cap tech itself off the back of whatever Nvidia delivers is what?
I mean, I believe it's going to be bullish. This is what I believe is the start of tech that rallies into year end, led by big cap tech. You got the AI revolution coming to Cupertino, as we've talked about in terms of iPhone. This is the start. We believe it's not just about NASDAQ 20,000, it's about big cap tech. This is just the beginning of the next phase of the bull market, and I think it all starts tonight.
Okay, you're optimistic, it seems, from your notes on Salesforce, which also reports in overtime. You say that you expect the start of an AI era from Mark Benioff, and company. What have they been spinning their wheels to this point? I mean, the stock has done nothing. year to date, they've underperformed, obviously, the rest of tech and the NASDAQ. What's been the problem, and why are you optimistic now?
Sure, it starts with our multiplier. I mean, for every dollar spent on a NVIDIA chip, we think $8 to $10 multiplier across the rest of tech. You look at Salesforce and bending up at their position, they haven't benefited yet. But we look out in the next 6, 9, 12 months, this is going to be a massive tailwind for them from a cross-sell perspective when you look at their install base. I think it's going to be a slight bounce back quarter, but this is a name that I think is going to be in the start of a renaissance of growth. And that's everything we see from our check showing. It's about the install base, no different than Oracle, no different than what we see with McDermott and ServiceNow. Benioff and Salesforce will be next, despite some of the headwinds.
Dan Ives emphasizes that Nvidia's upcoming earnings report is a pivotal moment for the stock market, as it highlights the growing demand for AI chips. He believes that Nvidia, under the leadership of Jensen Huang, will continue to dominate the AI chip space, driving significant growth over the next 6 months. Ives also downplays concerns about potential delays with Nvidia's Blackwell chips, noting that the company's long-term earnings potential remains strong. He predicts that Nvidia's role as a leader in the AI revolution will shape its financial trajectory and continue to fuel the broader tech bull market. In addition to Nvidia, Ives discusses how AI is reshaping the tech landscape, with companies like OpenAI and Salesforce positioned to benefit. He is optimistic about Salesforce's future, despite its recent struggles, and believes the company will play a key role in the next phase of tech growth. As the AI revolution gains momentum, Ives sees Nvidia and other major tech companies as central to driving innovation and market performance in the months ahead. How do you see Nvidia's leadership in AI shaping the broader tech market over the next year? Do you believe potential delays in Nvidia's Blackwell chips will significantly impact its growth trajectory?